Hello, welcome to part 3 of making a V-42 combat knife. In the previous episodes, you watched as I forged out the Sanmai steel for the blade and ground it to shape. And now, in this episode, I'm going to make the guard and attach the pommel. Now the pommel, I was unable to film the footage of me making it, but I made it out of a piece of wrought iron that I turned on a lathe. I do have pictures though that I will now insert into the video. Now, all I have to do is take this piece of threaded rod and notch out this side of the tang so that I can put it in there and weld it into place. And now to do that, I'm going to tape up the blade so it doesn't get scratched and thin down the tang and put the notch in it. So here we go. Alright, so here we are. I've cleaned up the sides of the tang, and I don't know if you can see it in the video, but I have put some die chem on the steel so that I could scribe in my lines showing where I need to notch it out for the threaded rod. And I'm going to do that on the bandsaw. And I'm going to cut it with a lot of extra metal inside the lines so that I can go in with a file afterwards and really clean it up and make them precise. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so I've got the knife in the vise, and I have some small files along with some oil, and I'm just going to file out this slot so that I will be able to fit in the threaded rod. So here we go. Alright, so I filed out the notch enough to fit in the threaded rod, and now all I'm going to do is stick weld it into place. Alright, got it welded into place, and the weld ground back off so that everything is flat. And now I'm going to get working on the guard, which will also be made out of the same wrought iron that was used in the laminate of the blade and for the pommel. So here we are back at the bandsaw. I've got my guard blank kind of forged out, and it's got the bend in it. And now in all the research I've been doing on the V-42 combat knife, the guards seem to vary a lot. And in the drawing that I'm working off of, you can't even really see the guard at all. So I'm gonna really do it very simple. I'm gonna cut it off here and round the edges a little bit on the grinder. And the width is the hardest part. Now, I wanted it like this. And it varies a lot to being almost half as thick as this, all the way to maybe a 1/4 inch bigger than this. So I'm going somewhere in the middle, and I'm hoping it'll look nice when I'm all done. Alright, so now that I've ground the guard clean, I have sketched out the shape of it that I want. I'm going to be cutting to the outside of the lines, and I'm going to go and do that on the bandsaw right now. Now that I have the guard ground to shape and polished, I'm going to drill in some holes that are the same width as the tang of the knife, and that way I can connect the holes with a file and a jeweler's saw and be able to slide it onto the tang of the knife. So I'm going to lay out the holes and drill them. So now I've got the holes marked out and center punched, and they're ready to be drilled. Okay, so here I've got the guard threaded onto my jeweler's saw, and I'm just going to start connecting the drill holes. Alright, and I'm just going to continue that on the other side. Alright, so now that I have all the holes connected in the guard, I'm going to start using these little needle files to open it up so that I can fit the tang of the knife through it. And now this is going to be a very long process of just taking off a little bit of material and then test fitting the tang to make sure that everything lines up with no gaps. So here I go. Alright, so it's just going to keep on doing that and seeing how it turns out. So I'll turn the cameras back on once I have it a little bit further. Here's a quick update. I've been at this for about 20 minutes now, and I've got it to where the blade seats up against it, and I'm starting to get into the area where it starts to taper up in here. So now I need to take that slot that I've made, which is rectangular, and start branching it out on here so that the shoulders of the blade sit up against the guard and don't have any gaps. So I'll probably be working on this for about another 20 minutes, and then I'll give you another update. Alright, so here we are. I've got the guard fitted and it is centered. And now what I'm going to do is epoxy it into place, and that's not going to be the only thing holding it on. When everything is put together, the compression from the pommel being screwed on, pushing against the stack leather handle, will also keep it in place. Alright, so now that I have the guard on, I'm going to start doing the very long process of taking these little squares of leather, cutting a slot in them, and sliding them onto the tang. So for that, I've just made this little chisel piece out of a file, and I'm just going, marking out the pieces of leather and cutting out the slots. And this is going to take quite a while, and then after they all have the hole cut in them, I'll be able to go in and slide them all on with epoxy in between them and put the pommel on, and then I will have the handle almost completed. I'll just have to shape it at that point. There we go. There's one of them kind of cut out. So once I got that done, take it and slide it onto the tang. I'm going to do that for all of these, and then I'll show you when I got the handle all stacked up. Alright, so I have all of the little pieces of leather cut out, and I'm going to start assembling them and gluing them together. So I got my epoxy. I think I'm going to need all of it for this project at least. And I had it's pretty cold in my shop, so I had my epoxy sitting by a work light that I had close to the ground. So it's really runny, which is good. Makes it easier to mix. I cut out this piece of wood with a hole in it, just so that I can really push down the pieces of leather as I go along. Now this is 5-minute epoxy, so I'm hoping I gotta work pretty quick and hope it doesn't cure while I'm working. So the epoxy is starting to gum up, as you can see. So I only got this far with it. So I'm going to let this dry for a little bit and mix up another batch of epoxy and continue going. And I'm probably not going to film the rest of this, so you'll see it when it's all dry and has the pommel screwed on. Okay, so I've got the knife all glued up and I've let it set for a few hours so that the epoxy is hardened. And I'm just going to start grinding it. Starting to flatten up these sides and just keep grinding it until I get a really nice ergonomic grip. So here we go.